Before we get into this video with expert cycling, strength and conditioning coach Aaron Turner, please know that both Aaron and I have been working over the past 4 months building out a new and highly requested strength and conditioning module, which includes 3 off-bike gym programs for beginner to intermediate to advanced and 5 video tutorials for the up-level road cycling course. Now I want to provide a little incentive for those of you who might be on the fence to at least consider applying for the next intake for the up-level road cycling course, which is happening on March 28th. The link will be below, and that incentive is this new module valued at $250 USD will be provided to all existing RCA members at no charge and all those that join us as new members for the March intake. So if you're interested in applying, I'll provide a link below. And let's get into the video.
And that's a good question. So it kind of does fit into that. Whilst this NRS race coming up is very important for the athletes, their eye on the prize is they want that national success. They want to do well at that. And they know it's an incredibly hard race at nationals, whether it's the crit, the time trial, the road race, men's or women's. Incredibly difficult racing there. So how does our gym look leading into this? Well, as you can imagine, this time of year, the cycling coaches are ramping up certain loads. We've got some big racing coming up. So on-bike training loads are going up. So me as the strength coach, I need my strength loads pulling back. There's no point me we can't double whammy these athletes. They are human at the end of the day. We can't have bike training loads doing this and weight training loads doing this. You're going to encounter a problem. Yes, there is that freak athlete out there that does exist that can tolerate huge amounts of training load and they're going to respond regardless. They are a diamond in the rough. They're an incredibly rare athlete. I will never be presumptuous that I have one of those athletes in my care. So whenever bike loads start doing this, going up, I'm pulling back gym loads. Or I'm actively just maintaining. And the athlete might say, hey Aaron, I want to increase my weights on the leg press and the deadlift today. And I'm like, look, here's your training loads. I've got my laptop here. Can you see your training stress balance or your form indicator through Training Peaks? Can you see that it says -60 on it? Yep. That means today we are not increasing weight training loads because I can see you're having a bit of a ramp on the bike. And the bike stuff is super important. The gym is the adjunct to all this. So we pull back gym loads. So how does it look at the moment? The athletes that are competing are only doing 1 gym day a week with me. And that comes on the back of some research from Runnerstad as well that was showing, and I think we emailed about this article a little while back, is what Runnerstad identified was that as long as you do sort of a 2-week gym preparation period with your athletes, which we've been doing effectively all year, you can drop down to 1 gym a week for 13 weeks and you'll have no performance decrement at all with respect to strength and power in the cycling athlete. So I explained to my athletes about a month ago, I said, look, I can see some bike training ramping up. We are going to be dropping to 1 gym a week. Do I have your buy-in? And most of them were like, yes, I do. Yep, Aaron, we'll sign up for that because we can see our coaches plan that our training is going up. So a lot of the athletes, 99% of them, I've dropped them all to 1 day a week, which is the start of the week. And they have an optional core stability activation day later in the week, which I've actively discouraged them to do.
Right.
But I said, if you're climbing the walls and you're desperate, there is a session there, and I am comfortable that it's not going to overload you, but it's just going to keep the lights on and make you feel better. So that's there. I do have one athlete who's not targeting this upcoming NRS race, and so we have an agreement that we will continue them on 2 gyms a week for 2 more weeks, and then it goes. And because they're an anaerobic beast, that particular athlete, I'm like, you are going to get more benefit when we pull this back. And so their eye on the prize is sort of nationals, which is fine. So we'll be dropping back in about 2 weeks for them. Okay. And then they'll do no gym over the period from Christmas Eve through to the first week of January. So we get a full week off gym. And then if they still want to come into gym the week before they leave for nationals, it'll just be activation. And that's because I know for that particular athlete, being an anaerobic beast, it's going to take them 3 weeks to fully adapt anaerobically of what we've been doing. So their power will come back up quite nicely. So in summary, how does it look? 1 day a week for nearly all the athletes, and that's going to keep the lights on perfectly. That's backed by the Runnerstad research that I can do that for 13 weeks. I'm not going to have no decrements in strength.
Maintenance.
And the beauty of that
you don't lose any at all.
Don't lose any at all.
Okay.
At the cohort level.
Okay.
You know, so we're looking at bell curves of responses. So there's bound to be some athletes that drop a little bit, but I can deal with that because it's only a 6-7 week period into nationals, and it's only about a week and a bit away from this National Road Series race. So dropping back to once a week is going to work fantastic for them. They lose that gym day, more time to recover, more time to eat, more time to foam roll, more time to stretch, more time to get into the Normatec boots or the recovery pools. So I see that as hugely beneficial. And then once this year's over, I'll drop that one gym session, and it'll just become like an activation stability session for the athlete, which they'll probably just do for 1 week, and then it's off to South Australia, is it, for the national championship? I don't know where it is this year. Ballarat with the COVID stuff. Yep. I never know where it's going to be. So Ballarat.
Yep.
And that'll work quite nicely for them.
Yes.
And we're recovering them. So I hope that ties in with what I've been saying.
It does. But leading in, so now they're in a maintenance mode. Before that, when they're building in these 3-4 week cycles, is it 2 times a week, 3 times a week? What is it?
Yeah, ideally twice a week.
Okay.
And I have some athletes ask me throughout the year, they'll say, hey, can I go to 3 times a week? And we'll negotiate that depending on what their on-bike loads are doing.
Mm.
I don't like doing it when an athlete is ramping their training load because, I don't like it when athletes are ramping their training load because it comes back to that thing of double whammy. I don't want gym going up and bike going up, bike loads going up at a steep rate. I don't think that's sustainable. And I've anecdotally been burnt too many times over the years where I've let athletes persuade me into that and we've tried it and it hasn't worked out well with respect to fatigue management and just general wellness. So I always go, you can do 3 days a week if it's your off season and you're doing nothing else. Happy to do gym 3 days a week. If you're in a period where the coaches are more so just giving you an enduro block where it's more just developing some base Ks and you're doing very little intensity, I can be persuaded to do 3 gyms a week. Outside of that, it is a firm twice per week. And then leading into major competition, I'm happy to drop back to 1 a week or even none a week if the athlete's getting ramped quite a lot on the bike. And I know not all strength coaches will agree with me in that respect, but to put it in perspective, I've had some athletes where their average cycling distance for a week is 1,000 kilometers. That's a lot of training. I don't know how you'd actually get off the couch to get to the gym
Yes.
mentally
Absolutely.
to do that. So in those situations, I'm like, hey, you've been doing training with me for 3 months. You're now hitting these big Ks. Let's just give you a break. If you want to come in, why don't you come and use these recovery pools that we've got here, or we'll just do some sort of yoga flows, but nothing else. I know in a perfect world we'd keep the strength training throughout, but it's when you got athletes doing that sizable volumes, in my opinion, it's simply not feasible, and I don't think it's fair on the athlete to be dragging them around to these gym sessions when they're already probably doing about 30 hours on the bike if you're at that training volume. So that's where art meets science.
Yes.
You know, science says, I can quote you the studies that say twice per week's fantastic and it'll do X, Y, Z. But we've got to factor in that human element.
Yes.
And with cycling, when doing these big training volumes, I think that's incredibly important to consider as a strength coach.
Let's just say that you've done a big phase of strength training and cycling training combined, and then you transition, like, say, this athlete's doing more cycling training and you back right off the weights to a point where you might take it out, eliminate it completely for a week, 2, 3 weeks, I don't know. When does it come to a point where you're like, okay, if you spend another week or 2 outside of the gym, you're really going to start to lose what you've established?
Yeah, and it would come down to the athlete. As I mentioned earlier, the anaerobic athlete, so your power-based athlete, they've got the 1800 watt plus sprint. They probably can handle being out for 3 to 4 weeks, and they'll probably come back quite powerful because you're anaerobically not overloading them with the gym stuff. The downside is at the structural level of the muscle, that first gym session back for that particular athlete, you'll pull up quite sore because at the cellular level, the muscle cells have changed a little bit because they haven't been getting the type of stimulus that weight training gives. And then you get that kind of muscle soreness, which those of us who've been to the gym after a bit of a holiday break, you got the DOMs, you get quite sore. So look, for me, the line in the sand in terms of time out of gym, for an real anaerobic power athlete, I'm comfortable sort of 4 weeks. And then with respect to my enduro athletes, because they're not selected for the team to be the power sprinter, the aerobic person, look, they can probably go a little bit longer because we're not relying on their sprint usually to win a race necessarily. Sort of 4 to 6 weeks I'll deal with. The reason athletes don't usually take us up on going for that much time off, particularly during season, is because they know when they come back to it, you get that DOMS, that muscle soreness effect from the gym. So they usually, in general, don't like missing gym for about 2 weeks. And again, at the individual athlete approach as a strength coach, you have to know when to keep the athlete away, when they need that break. And it might be because it's mentally just cracking them, trying to adhere to all the training. So they need to have a longer period off. Or it might be the opposite. You're like, I know if I give this person too much time off, they'll never come back. And I know it's beneficial for them to come back. So 4 to 6 weeks is kind of my suggested maximum time off for gym. And then we come back in and we progressively build up the loads. You know, you can't just rush back in and like, I'm going to do the training load I was doing before my 6-week break. Great way to get injured. And we've seen that in other sports where athletes were all exposed to that COVID shutdown in 2020 in Australia. And everything was shut. The gyms were shut. The swimming pools were shut. The athletics tracks were shut. I don't think you could even get right out on the road very far from your house and all this sort of stuff. And when all that got lifted, a lot of athletes were like, I'm just going to start back on the training program from before this all happened. We had a lot of big spike in injuries at my work. So it is important, if you have given an athlete a prescribed break off as a strength coach, or you've taken one off from your gym program, ease back into it. Take the time to progress over that 2, 3, 4 week period to try and build back up to the previous training loads you were exposed to in the gym.